welcome to Sleepy Story Facts. And tonight, in this gentle bedtime story, you are invited to drift softly into a calm and spacious darkness, where thought can slow, breath can lengthen, and the day can quietly loosen its hold on you, little by little, until all that remains is this relaxing story, this calm voice, and the vast, patient beauty of the cosmos above. Make yourself comfortable now, in whatever way comfort comes most easily, and let the weight beneath you do all the holding, while your shoulders soften, your jaw unclenches, and your breathing becomes easy and unhurried, because there is nothing to solve here, nothing to finish, nowhere to be, only this sleep story, this nighttime story, and the slow unfolding of one of the gentlest wonders human beings have ever made, the space telescope. Imagine for a moment that your thoughts are like tiny satellites, once busy and circling quickly, now easing into wider, slower orbits until they no longer rush, but simply float far above Earth, beyond the weather, beyond clouds and wind, and the shimmering blur of the atmosphere. Telescopes wait in silence. And this is one of the first soothing facts to carry with you toward deep sleep. We place telescopes in space because Earth's air, so precious for life, slightly bends and blurs incoming light. A telescope lifted above that moving veil can see the universe with a steadier gaze. It does not hurry. It simply watches. In that stillness, the cosmos becomes clearer. Picture the Hubble Space Telescope gliding in darkness, its long silver body passing above the curve of Earth, while far below the oceans gleam faintly, and continents sleep under cloud and moonlight. Hubble has spent years doing something beautifully simple. It has collected light, ancient light, light that began traveling long before any human city existed. And by gathering that faint glow with a polished mirror, it has shown us galaxies, nebulae, and stars, as though opening quiet windows in the night. A telescope, after all, is not truly a machine for looking. It is a patient bowl for catching light. That is all. And yet, from something so simple comes immense wonder. The larger the mirror, the more light it gathers, and the more distant and delicate the universe becomes to us. Somewhere farther away, at the Sun-Earth Eltwo point, where gravity and motion create a useful balance, the James Webb Space Telescope rests in the cold dark with its great golden mirror and layered sunshield spread like a luminous sail. Webb does not mainly look in visible light as your eyes do. It studies infrared, the softer heat glow of the universe, allowing it to notice things hidden behind dust, to glimpse very distant galaxies, and to observe the cool atmospheres of faraway worlds. There is something especially restful in that idea, that the universe has more than one kind of light, and that human curiosity learned to build instruments gentle enough to notice what our eyes alone cannot. Some telescopes listen for X-rays, others for gamma rays, others for ultraviolet, and each one adds another hush-colored thread to the fabric of what we know. It is as if the cosmos is singing in many registers at once, and space telescopes help us hear the quieter notes as this calming narration continues. Imagine yourself drifting beside one of these observatories, not inside a loud spacecraft, not in danger, not in haste, but in a serene fictional stillness, wrapped in warmth, watching mirrors and instruments quietly perform their slow devotion to seeing. There are no flashing alarms here, no harsh commands, only the steady orientation of a telescope turning by fractions, aligning itself with a distant target, then waiting while photons arrive one by one. After journeys so long and lonely that their destination feels almost tender, some of that light left its source before Earth had forests, some before our species existed at all. And yet tonight, in this gentle bedtime moment, you can picture it ending its ancient voyage on the surface of a mirror made by human hands. That, too, is one of the most relaxing facts about space telescopes. They connect great distances without noise. They reveal the cosmos not through conquest, but through patience. Even their locations are chosen with care. Some circle Earth closely. Some travel far enough to stay cold and stable. Some are designed to avoid the warmth of sunlight because heat can interfere with faint infrared signals, so they shield themselves, cool themselves, and wait in darkness where sensitivity becomes possible. The deeper lesson is quiet and lovely. To see subtle things, one must become still. And perhaps that is true for you tonight as well, as your body settles more deeply, as your thoughts cool and dim like instruments, entering a calm observing mode. You do not need to force sleep to come. You only need to become a little quieter, a little softer, a little more open to the faint and distant. Let this relaxing story move around you like low starlight. Let each telescope become a symbol of gentle attention. Hubble above the blue Earth, Webb under its golden shield, the invisible observatories that notice X-rays, ultraviolet, and ancient heat. All of them floating, all of them watching, all of them turning silence into understanding. And as they drift through the velvet dark, perhaps you can drift too, away from the edges of the day, away from effort, away from brightness, and toward the kind of rest that arrives gradually, like light crossing space, until this sleep story becomes only a soft background glow, and your mind, like a telescope pointed toward a peaceful sky, simply rests in the dark and receives. Now, as this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift a little farther from the busy edges of the day and into the calm, clear stillness above the world, where the Hubble Space Telescope moves in a patient orbit, and the night below turns quietly beneath it, oceans dark and smooth, continents dimmed by distance, and clouds shining faintly in moonlight like soft breath across glass. Hubble was placed above Earth's atmosphere so that it could see the universe without the constant blur of moving air. And that simple choice gave humanity a calmer, sharper window into deep space. There is something deeply soothing in that idea, that to see more clearly, one sometimes has to rise above the turbulence. Hubble itself is not hurried or dramatic in its work. It circles the planet, waits for the right orientation, and gathers light with a large mirror, allowing faint and faraway objects to become visible after slow, careful observation. In this relaxing story, you can imagine it not as a machine of cold metal, but as a silent lantern of attention, gliding through darkness with complete devotion to one quiet task, turning toward a star cluster, a nebula, a galaxy, and then simply receiving what has already been traveling for ages. The light that enters a telescope does not arrive all at once like a shout. It arrives gently, photon by photon, each tiny packet a traveler from an older moment in the universe, and Hubble's instruments patiently collect those travelers until a hidden scene begins to emerge. That is one of the most peaceful facts about space telescopes. They do not seize the cosmos, they wait for it. Hubble's famous images have shown pillars of gas where stars are forming, spiral galaxies turning in the dark, and delicate clouds of dust illuminated by nearby suns, revealing that the universe, for all its scale, often appears soft, luminous, and almost dreamlike when seen with enough patience. As you listen, you do not need to memorize any of this. You only need to feel the pace of it, the slowness, the steadiness, the absence of urgency. Imagine the telescope gently rotating on its axis, tiny adjustments barely noticeable, each motion measured and exact until it finds its target again, some quiet region of the sky that has waited in silence for millions or billions of years, unconcerned with whether anyone was watching. And yet now, because of a mirror carried above the atmosphere, the old light is welcomed in. A mirror, after all, is such a humble thing. Here on Earth it might hang in a hallway or rest above a sink, catching faces and lamps and morning shadows. But in orbit, shaped with exquisite care, a mirror becomes a kind of sleeping bowl for starlight, gathering what is faint, reflecting it inward, offering it to instruments that translate brightness into understanding. Hubble observes mostly visible and ultraviolet light, which means it can show the cosmos in forms that often feel familiar to the eye, while also reaching beyond what human vision alone can manage. So while you rest in this nighttime story, the telescope continues its untroubled work, drifting above a planet full of sleepers, dreamers, night workers, quiet animals, and darkened coastlines, as though it is keeping a soft watch for everyone at once. Far below it, city lights shine and fade with cloud cover, while above it, stars remain steady and unblinking. And between those two layers, Hubble moves, like a thought too calm to disturb anything. In a way, space telescopes teach a gentle bedtime lesson. They remind us that distance is not emptiness. The dark between worlds is full of information, full of history, full of ancient messages carried in light. When Hubble studies a distant galaxy, it is not only seeing across space, but also back through time, because light from faraway places takes immense stretches of time to arrive. That means a telescope can become a peaceful kind of timekeeper, revealing not only what is out there, but what once was. The farther it looks, the older the light can be. Even this can be received softly tonight, not as a difficult scientific principle, but as a comforting rhythm. The universe is old, light is patient, and seeing takes time. Let those ideas drift around you like warm darkness. Let your breathing grow as unhurried as an orbit. Let your thoughts become spacious, leaving wide intervals between one and the next. If a worry appears, let it pass like a small satellite crossing far below the telescope's view. If a memory surfaces, let it dim gently like a city turning off its lights before dawn. Nothing in this calming narration needs effort from you. Hubble will keep circling. The stars will keep shining. The ancient light will continue arriving, and somewhere in the quiet harmony between mirror, detector, and darkness, a very old universe keeps becoming visible in the gentlest possible way. So rest here a little longer, held between earth below and the sky above, while this sleep story carries you onward, not quickly, not with any sharp turn, but with the same smooth grace as a space telescope passing through shadow into sunlight and back again. Serene, tireless, and devoted to the peaceful art of seeing. Now, as this gentle bedtime story continues, allow your mind to drift beyond the close and familiar orbit of Earth, beyond the silver passage of Hubble, and farther outward to a quieter station in space, where the James Webb Space Telescope waits in profound stillness, suspended near the Sun-Earth Eltwo Point, a region used by observatories because it offers a stable, cold, and useful place for deep space viewing. Here the feeling changes softly, because this is not the near neighborhood of our blue world anymore, but a more distant observatory lane where sunlight is managed with great care, where heat is treated almost like noise in a quiet room, and where one of humanity's most delicate instruments unfolds itself not in a rush, but like a patient golden flower opening in the dark. Webb is known for its large gold-coated segmented mirror and its vast layered sunshield, which helps keep the telescope cold enough to study the universe in infrared light, the kind of light especially useful for seeing through dust and for detecting very distant, faint objects. That simple fact can rest beside you tonight like a soft thought. Some parts of the universe are not best seen by brightness alone, but by warmth, by hidden glow, by the gentle traces ordinary sight would miss. In this relaxing story, imagine Webb not as a complicated machine, but as a calm listener, one that has traveled far enough from Earth to avoid much of its reflected heat and light, one that turns its golden face toward ancient darkness and receives signals that have crossed unimaginable distances with no sound at all. The telescope's infrared vision allows it to observe star-forming regions veiled by cosmic dust, to study galaxies from the early universe, and to examine atmospheres of distant exoplanets in ways that visible light telescopes cannot do alone. Yet even that grand ability feels peaceful when you linger with it long enough, because what Webb truly does is wait, and then wait a little more, and then gather a whisper of radiation so faint that it might once have seemed unreachable, until from those faint traces there begins to appear a nursery of stars, a curved galaxy, a filigree of dust, or some remote structure whose light began its journey before Earth was what it is now. It is beautiful to think that in order to see the earliest chapters of cosmic history, scientists had to build something that could remain exquisitely calm, shielded from warmth, protected from glare, and steady enough to notice the almost invisible. That feels like a bedtime lesson too, because sometimes what is deepest can only be approached by softness. Webb's mirror is made of multiple segments working together as one surface, and that harmony of many pieces becoming a single quiet eye adds another soothing fact needs to force the cosmos to reveal itself. It only needs alignment, stillness, and time. Imagine yourself drifting near it now, warm and untroubled, watching the huge sunshield stretch below like folded satin touched by dim sunlight on one side and endless cold on the other. While beyond the mirror, the stars remain steady, countless, and silent. There is no drama here, only precision so gentle it almost disappears into grace. Small adjustments guide the telescope toward its target. Instruments cool and listen. Ancient infrared light falls onto the mirror, is directed inward, and becomes data. And from data comes image, and from image comes understanding. But the entire process begins in something very quiet, the arrival of a faint signal after a long journey through blackness. NASA's Webb galleries highlight images of nebulae, galaxies, star-forming regions, and other distant structures, showing just how richly the infrared universe can bloom when observed with enough sensitivity. You do not need to picture every detail sharply. In fact, it may be nicer not to. You can let the images remain soft around the edges, like a dream of pillars glowing in amber dust, or a deep field sprinkled with tiny galaxies that seem less like objects and more like a kind of cosmic snowfall suspended forever in the dark. Somewhere beneath all of this rests the simple truth that telescopes extend human sight not by replacing wonder, but by deepening it. Hubble gave the world a clear, visible window above the atmosphere, while Webb carries that effort farther into infrared, revealing another layer of the universe's calm, hidden architecture. And perhaps that is why space telescopes feel so restful in a nighttime story. They do not shout over mystery. They move closer to it with care. They allow what is distant to remain distant, and yet still become known. As you continue settling toward deep sleep, let Webb become a symbol of that slow knowing, that tender kind of seeing which does not disturb what it observes. Let its golden mirror remind you of a lantern turned outward into the oldest night. Let its cold instruments suggest the clarity that comes when excess warmth falls away. Let its far station at Eltwo feel like a quiet balcony overlooking time itself, where the youngest stars are wrapped in dust. The oldest galaxies release their ancient glow, and everything arrives only when it is ready. Here, in this calming narration, no effort is required from you. The telescope can do the watching. The photons can do the traveling. The universe can keep its patient silence, and you, wrapped in this gentle bedtime, can simply drift beside the golden observatory as it floats in the far quiet, gathering ancient warmth from the dark and turning it, little by little, into soft understanding. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself remain in that deep and peaceful observatory lane where the great telescopes drift, and imagine that the universe is not made of one darkness, but many delicate layers of darkness, each one holding its own kind of light, its own hush, its own secret color waiting to be noticed by an instrument patient enough to see it. Human eyes are lovely, but they are narrow little windows. And one of the most calming facts about space telescopes is that they were built to widen the window, to let us sense more of the cosmos than bare sight alone could ever hold. space observatories do not all study the same kind of light. Together, they help reveal the universe across multiple wavelengths, each one adding another quiet piece to the larger picture. So tonight, in this relaxing story, imagine the cosmos as a grand sleeping garden scene through different veils. In one veil, stars shine in visible light, crisp and clear, as they might appear to Hubble when it looks outward from above Earth's atmosphere. In another veil, hidden warmth glows softly through dust, and Webb, with its infrared vision, notices structures and distant objects that would otherwise remain dim or concealed in still other veils. The universe hums in energies our bodies never evolved to sense directly. And yet, the instruments humans placed in space can greet those signals with extraordinary calm, turning the unseen into image, shape, and understanding. There's something very soothing in this. The cosmos has never been silent or empty just because we could not perceive all of it. It has always been rich, layered, and gently radiant in more ways than the eye can grasp. And the work of a telescope is not to invent beauty, but to uncover it slowly. Let that thought settle over you like a soft blanket. There may be more in the world than first appears, and that is not a reason for strain, but a reason for wonder. Imagine yourself floating now between these observatories, as though moving through a quiet museum of light. To one side, a polished mirror gathers visible starlight. To another, a cold golden eye receives infrared warmth that has traveled for ages through dust and distance. Between them, there is no competition, no urgency, only cooperation, as though each telescope is holding a small lantern over one corner of the same immense sleeping map. Some show the bright edges of nebulae. Some reveal hidden star nurseries. Some help us glimpse galaxies so far away that their light feels less like a message and more like memory. Webb's image galleries include nebulae, galaxies, and star-forming regions that show how richly the infrared universe can appear when observed with enough sensitivity. As you listen, you do not need to hold each fact tightly. You can let the ideas drift by in slow procession, like dim constellations reflected on calm water. Think of dust for a moment, not as a nuisance, but as a tender cosmic curtain. Invisible light, it can obscure what lies behind it, softening a region of space into shadow. But in infrared, some of that hidden structure can begin to emerge, allowing observatories like Webb to study what was once wrapped in darkness. That is a lovely bedtime image, that some things are not absent when unseen, only gently veiled, waiting for a different kind of attention. If the day has felt crowded or noisy, you may borrow that lesson now. Not every thought needs to be solved. Not every feeling needs to be made sharp and bright. Some things can remain soft at the edges and still be understood in time. Above you, around you, through this nighttime story, the telescopes continue their untroubled work. They pivot almost imperceptibly. They hold still. They cool themselves. They gather faint signals. They transform long journeys of light into quiet revelations. NASA presents Hubble and Webb as major observatories that help humanity study the universe from above the blurring effects of Earth's atmosphere and across different forms of light. And all of this happens not with noise, but with patience. That may be the most relaxing fact of all. We learned more about the cosmos not only by building powerful machines, but by building still ones, instruments capable of waiting in darkness without fear of it. So let yourself soften into that same stillness now. Let your breathing become slow and unforced. Let your thoughts move farther apart, as though each one were a distant star with wide, dark spaces between. Let the visible universe fade gently into the infrared, and let the infrared fade into dream. If you like, imagine each telescope as a quiet companion keeping watch while you rest. One near Earth, one farther out, each gazing into the night on your behalf, each collecting ancient light so you do not have to do anything at all. The cosmos can go on shining in all its hidden colors. The mirrors can go on receiving it. The instruments can go on translating it, and you can go on drifting deeper and deeper into this gentle bedtime until the many wavelengths of the universe feel less like scientific categories and more like layers of sleep itself. Visible thought giving way to softer thought giving way to warmth, and warmth finally giving way to that beautiful and wordless dark where nothing is required and everything is calm. And now, as this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift a little deeper into the observatory lanes of the cosmos, where the great space telescopes keep their patient watch, and where even the light human eyes cannot see is welcomed, gathered, and slowly turned into understanding. Because one of the most relaxing truths about space telescopes is that they do not rely on vision alone in the ordinary sense, but extend perception into forms of light far beyond the narrow band our eyes can detect. If you imagine the universe as a vast sleeping house, then visible light is only one softly lit room within it, while beyond that room lie others, quieter and stranger, filled with ultraviolet glow, infrared warmth, and high-energy signals that would pass unnoticed through human life if no careful instrument were waiting in the dark to receive them. There's something deeply peaceful in that idea, that reality is wider than our senses, and yet not unreachable, because over time, human beings learned to build observatories that float far above the blurring air of Earth and listen to the cosmos in several gentle languages of light. Tonight, in this relaxing story, you do not need to think of them as machines first. You may think of them as quiet translators, each one devoted to a different whisper from the universe. Hubble, resting above Earth, has offered clear views in visible and ultraviolet light, showing nebulae, galaxies, and star clusters with remarkable sharpness. Once freed from atmospheric distortion, Webb, farther out in the cold stillness near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region, has unfolded its gold-coated mirror and Sunshield, so it can remain cold enough to observe the cosmos in infrared, detecting hidden structures behind dust and studying very distant objects whose light has traveled for immense spans of time. Together, these observatories suggest something lovely and slow, that the universe does not reveal itself all at once, but in layers, and that understanding often comes from allowing many kinds of seeing to rest side by side. Imagine yourself gliding now through a darkness so calm It feels almost velvety, with no wind, no sound, no urgency, only distant stars and the measured turning of observatories as they settle on their targets. One instrument waits for visible light, another for infrared warmth, and elsewhere other space observatories are designed to study additional wavelengths, helping scientists assemble a fuller picture of the cosmos than any single telescope could provide alone. In your mind, this does not need to feel technical. It can feel like moving through different kinds of moonlight. In one region, the stars appear crisp and cool. In another, great clouds of dust begin to glow softly from within. In another still, energetic events leave traces that must be translated before they can be seen at all. The gentle wonder here is that invisible light is not empty or unreal. It is simply light arriving in forms our bodies do not naturally interpret. And so the telescopes do their quiet work on our behalf, catching what would otherwise pass us by and offering it back in images we can rest beside. Some of NASA's observatory resources present the universe this way, as a place explored by many instruments working across different wavelengths, each revealing distinct features of stars, galaxies, and cosmic structures. And perhaps that is why space telescopes belong so naturally inside a bedtime story. They teach without hurrying. They show that darkness is not the absence of meaning, but often the place where subtle meaning waits. They remind us that what seems hidden may simply require a softer gaze. Let that thought settle over you now. If some part of your day felt cloudy, if your thoughts felt scattered like faint starlight through moving air, you can borrow the logic of the observatories. Rise gently above the blur. Cool the noise. Wait without strain. Gather only what comes easily. That is what these telescopes do, after all. They do not force the universe to speak. They position themselves with care, protect their instruments from heat or interference, and remain still enough to receive a signal when it arrives. There is a soft kind of wisdom in that. The deepest views come not from rushing closer, but from patient attention. Imagine Hubble still circling above the sleeping Earth, silver and steady. Imagine Webb resting far away under its great layered shield, golden and cold, keeping itself in darkness so it can notice ancient infrared light too faint for warmer instruments to study as clearly. Imagine other observatories holding their own stations across space, each one a quiet room of perception, each one widening the map of the cosmos by receiving what the human eye alone cannot gather. And as they continue their calm observing, you may continue your own softer journey into deep sleep. Let visible light become a distant memory. Let infrared glow like the last warmth of evening. Let every hidden wavelength feel like another layer of rest unfolding around you. In this gentle bedtime, you are not asked to understand everything at once. You are only invited to drift among these quiet watchers and feel the reassurance of their patience. Because out there in the dark, mirrors and detectors are still keeping their silent vigil, still turning ancient signals into soft images, still proving that the cosmos, however vast it may be, can be met with calm. And that calm, when held long enough, becomes its own kind of seeing, as this gentle bedtime story continues. Let yourself settle even more deeply into the quiet rhythm of the observatories, because one of the most soothing facts about space telescopes is that so much of their work depends not on speed, but on patient waiting, on the calm collection of faint signals that have crossed enormous distances before arriving at a mirror or detector prepared to receive them. In this relaxing story, you can imagine that the universe does not hand over its beauty all at once, but offers it slowly, like a night sky revealing star after star as your eyes adjust to the dark. Hubble orbiting above Earth, and Webb resting in the colder stillness near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region. Both serve as gentle examples of this patient way of seeing, each gathering light from distant objects and helping human beings notice galaxies, nebulae, and star-forming regions that would otherwise remain fainter, blurrier, or hidden behind dust. There is something deeply restful in that idea, that knowing can arrive gradually, and that the cosmos does not need to be rushed in order to be understood. Imagine yourself drifting now in the same great darkness where these telescopes keep their watch, with no engine noise, no urgency, no strain, only a vast and velvety calm extending in every direction, while somewhere nearby a telescope turns by the smallest degree and settles into stillness again. It has chosen a target, perhaps a far galaxy whose light began traveling before the Earth looked as it does now, or a quiet cloud of dust where stars are forming in hidden nurseries that infrared instruments can study with unusual tenderness. Then comes the part that feels almost like meditation. The telescope waits. It does not demand. It does not hurry. It simply remains open to arrival. Photon by photon, a faint stream touches the observatory, each tiny messenger carrying a little more of a distant scene. In ordinary life, waiting can sometimes feel difficult, but here in this nighttime story, the waiting is beautiful because it is full of trust. The light is already on its way. The telescope only has to remain steady enough to receive it. You may let that become a soft lesson for your own drifting mind tonight. Sleep, too, often arrives like ancient light. It is not summoned by force. It comes more easily when the mind becomes still, when the body cools into comfort, when there is space enough for gentleness to gather. So let yourself become like an observatory now, not searching too hard, not pressing, only resting quietly while calm accumulates around you. Far below and far behind, the busy surfaces of day can fade away. Ahead, there is only this spacious darkness and the slow appearance of detail. Perhaps at first, there is almost nothing to see, only a field of black scattered with points of silver. But then, with time, a dim curve emerges, then a glowing haze, then the suggestion of structure, until what once seemed empty begins to reveal itself as a galaxy, a cloud, a cluster, a place where the universe has been making and remaking itself in silence for ages. NASA's observatory resources and image galleries emphasize that Hubble and Webb reveal galaxies, nebulae, and star-forming regions, each contributing different views of the cosmos through different forms of light. That means the calm labor of these telescopes is not only about looking far away, but also about letting hidden shape emerge from faintness. In visible light, one scene may appear crisp and luminous. In infrared, another layer may open, showing structures softened by dust or distance and made legible only through careful observation. And so the story grows softer rather than louder. The farther you travel in thought, the gentler the seeing becomes. You might picture Hubble as a silver lantern circling the sleeping Earth, and Webb as a golden mirror resting in cold darkness, both practicing the same quiet art of attention in different ways. Neither telescope needs applause. Neither one rushes toward revelation. They keep their stations, hold their orientation, and let time do some of the work. That is why space telescopes feel so perfect for a sleep story. They are instruments of patience, and patience is one of the calmest things in the universe. If any thought still clings too tightly to you tonight, imagine placing it far away, as if setting it gently adrift beyond the orbit of the moon and farther still, until it becomes just one faint object among many, no longer sharp enough to trouble you. Then imagine the telescope turning away from that thought and toward something older, quieter, kinder, a region of soft light where stars are being born behind dust, or a galaxy whose pale glow has traveled across epochs simply to arrive in silence. The observatory gathers that light without effort visible to you. And in the same way, this bedtime story can gather the remaining brightness of your mind and soften it, little by little, into rest. Here in the observatory lanes, nothing needs to happen quickly. Ancient light is patient. The telescopes are patient. This calming narration is patient. And you can be patient too, sinking farther into comfort as the universe slowly, almost tenderly, reveals itself through the long, gentle waiting that turns darkness into image and image into a quiet kind of peace. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift even farther into the calm architecture of the observatories, into that quiet region where darkness is not empty, but helpful, where shadow itself becomes a kind companion, and where one of the most soothing facts about space telescopes begins to unfold with great softness. Sometimes, in order to see the faintest parts of the cosmos, an instrument must first become very still and very cold. The James Webb Space Telescope was designed with a large gold-coated segmented mirror and a broad layered sunshield, so it could remain cold enough to study infrared light with great sensitivity. There is something almost tender in that design, as though human beings understood that some truths are too delicate to be found in glare, too subtle to be noticed in warmth, and must instead be met in a hush of shade and patient cooling. So imagine yourself floating beside Webb now, not close enough to disturb it, only near enough to admire its serene geometry, the golden mirror ahead, the great shield spread below like a silent sail, one side facing the sun, the other preserving a chamber of cold darkness where the telescope can rest and observe. NASA describes Webb's Sunshield as essential for blocking heat and light, helping the observatory maintain the low temperatures needed for infrared astronomy. And because infrared light is closely tied to heat, any warmth from the sun, Earth, or even the telescope itself could interfere with the faint signals it was built to detect. That is why the shield matters so much, and why this part of the story can feel so calming tonight, because it turns even the idea of protection into something graceful. The telescope does not fight the sunlight, it simply keeps the sunlight to one side. It does not struggle against warmth, it arranges itself carefully, allowing cool darkness to do its gentle work. Perhaps you can borrow that feeling now. Not every disturbance must be defeated. Some things can simply be placed at a distance. Some thoughts can remain on the bright side of the shield, while the softer part of you drifts into deep sleep on the other side. Webb operates near the Sun-Earth Eltwo point, a location used by major observatories because it offers a stable environment and helps the telescope keep the Sun, Earth, and Moon on roughly the same side of its shield. In this relaxing story, that arrangement feels almost like a cosmic bedtime ritual, a way of dimming the room before rest. Everything bright is gathered to one side. Everything quiet is preserved on the other. And there, in that preserved darkness, the observatory can notice ancient warmth from distant galaxies, cool clouds of dust, and the subtle signatures of faraway worlds. Webb's infrared observations are used to study star-forming regions hidden by dust, distant galaxies from the early universe, and the atmospheres of exoplanets. Yet none of this needs to feel technical as you lie here listening. Instead, let it become a soft image. Imagine a telescope resting in shadow, so complete and intentional that it can sense the faint afterglow of places unimaginably far away, as if the universe were breathing out warmth so quietly that only a patient golden mirror could hear it. That may be one of the loveliest bedtime truths in all of astronomy. Distance does not erase presence. Even what is remote leaves a trace, and if one waits gently enough, that trace can arrive. Hubble, too, offers its own quieter version of this lesson, because by orbiting above Earth's atmosphere, it avoids much of the blurring caused by air and can observe the cosmos with unusual clarity in visible and ultraviolet light. So while Webb rests in deep cold to notice hidden infrared glow, Hubble circles nearer to Earth and watches with a different kind of calm. And together they reveal that seeing clearly is often a matter of creating the right conditions rather than forcing a result. This nighttime story can hold you in that same idea now. You do not need to force sleep to come. You do not need to chase rest across your thoughts. You can simply make conditions a little softer, a little darker, a little cooler in spirit, and allow calm to gather on its own. Imagine the Sunshield once more, layered and quiet, holding back the brightness, preserving the hush. Imagine the gold mirror waiting without strain. Imagine ancient light crossing the dark for ages, only to end its journey on a surface shaped by human care. NASA's Webb imagery and mission pages show a telescope built precisely for that kind of long, quiet receiving. And as it receives, perhaps you can receive too. The mattress beneath you, the darkness around you, the calm of this sleep story, the slow lengthening of breath, the fading of urgency, the gentle permission to fall asleep without effort. Let the shield remain between you and the day. Let the cold side of the observatory become the peaceful side of your own mind. Let every bright, unfinished thought stay far off, harmless and distant, while here in the protected shadow of this bedtime story, everything grows quieter. The mirror does not hurry. The cosmos does not hurry. This calming narration does not hurry. It all becomes slower, dimmer, kinder, until even the idea of a telescope feels less like a machine and more like a resting lantern floating in the dark, protected by its great silver pale veil, gathering warmth from the oldest reaches of space, while you gather something gentler still, a deep and dream-filled sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift into an even softer stillness, where the great observatories no longer feel like distant machines at all, but like calm companions, each resting in the place that suits them best, each moving through space in its own quiet pattern, each keeping a patient vigil over a different doorway into the cosmos. Some space telescopes orbit close to Earth above the blurring atmosphere, while others work much farther away in regions chosen for stability, darkness, and thermal calm. There is something deeply soothing in that arrangement, because it suggests that even in the vastness of space, placement matters and gentleness matters, and the clearest seeing often begins by finding the right place to be still. Imagine Hubble first, circling our world again and again, its silver body passing above oceans, deserts, mountain ranges, and sleeping cities, always returning to darkness after sunlight, always gliding onward with a kind of untroubled faithfulness. Hubble was placed above Earth's atmosphere, so it could observe the universe without the distortion caused by moving air, giving it unusually sharp views in visible and ultraviolet light. You can let that fact soften into a bedtime thought. Sometimes clarity comes not from changing what is being seen, but from stepping outside the blur. And then, farther away, imagine Webb in its colder and quieter station near the Sun-Earth Eltwo point, where it can keep the sun, Earth, and Moon largely on one side of its great shield, while its mirror and instruments rest in the shadowed cold needed for infrared observing. Unlike Hubble's near-orbital companionship with Earth, Webb's position is more like a distant balcony overlooking the dark, a place chosen so it can remain stable and sensitive while noticing faint infrared light from ancient galaxies, star-forming clouds, and distant planetary atmospheres. There is no sense of hurry in any of this, only a slow and beautiful geometry. One telescope near the turning Earth, another farther away in deep quiet, both arranged not for spectacle, but for patience. In this relaxing story, you may imagine that each observatory has found its own perfect sleeping posture in the universe. Hubble curls close to home, always in motion, always circling. Webb stretches out beneath its layered shield, serene and cool, keeping its golden eye turned toward older and fainter things. NASA describes these observatories as part of a broader effort to study the universe across different wavelengths and from environments above Earth's atmospheric interference. That means the sky is not watched from only one place or in only one way. It is watched from several kinds of quiet, and each quiet reveals something different. Let that settle over you now. There are many ways to see and many ways to rest. Some rest comes from closeness, like Hubble passing steadily over the blue curve of Earth. Some rest comes from distance, like Webb holding its remote position in cold darkness. Both are gentle. Both are enough. Somewhere beyond them, other observatories have also been designed to study different forms of light, helping complete a wider portrait of the cosmos than any single telescope could gather alone. And perhaps that is part of what makes space telescopes so perfect for a nighttime story. They are not solitary heroes. They are a small, patient community of watchers, each one attending to the universe in its own careful way, each one adding a little more softness, a little more shape, a little more understanding to the dark. Picture them now as lanterns set far apart in a grand sleeping garden. One lantern brightens the visible contours of nebulae and galaxies. Another glows with the hidden warmth of dust-veiled regions and distant early structures. Still others, in the broader family of observatories, help reveal parts of the universe carried by additional wavelengths that human eyes never evolved to sense directly. None of them rush toward answers. None of them disturb the silence they enter. They simply hold their stations and receive. If your thoughts are still moving a little tonight, let them join that gentle dance. Let one thought orbit and fade like Hubble over the curve of Earth. Let another drift outward and cool beneath Webb's great shield. Let the brighter concerns remain on the sunlit side, while the quieter part of your mind rests in shadow, open only to softness. This calming narration can become your own observatory lane now, a place where nothing presses, nothing flashes, nothing demands speed. The stars may be ancient, but they are in no hurry. The telescopes may be precise, but they are also profoundly calm. Their wisdom is simple. Choose the right place, keep still, and let the light arrive. Hubble continues its patient circuit above the world. Webb remains near Eltwo, cold and attentive beneath its sunshield. Together, they remind us that the cosmos is not only vast, but gracious enough to be studied slowly by instruments designed to wait without fear in the dark. So rest here a little longer in that idea, among these quiet watchers in their chosen places, and feel how gently the universe can be approached when nothing is forced, when distance is allowed, when stillness is trusted, and when seeing becomes so soft that it almost feels like sleep itself. And now, as this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift into an even quieter understanding of what a space telescope truly does. Because beneath the gold, the silver, the instruments, the dark shielding, and the graceful orbits, there is a very simple and beautiful act at the heart of it all. A telescope waits for light. Space telescopes are designed to gather faint light from distant objects, and their mirrors help collect far more of it than the human eye ever could on its own. That means every calm view of a nebula, every soft arc of a galaxy, every distant star cluster resting in the dark begins with something wonderfully delicate. A few wandering photons arriving after immense journeys, touching a mirror and being guided inward toward sensitive detectors. Hubble, orbiting above Earth's atmosphere, observes the universe with sharp clarity in visible and ultraviolet light. Because It is no longer looking through the blur of moving air. Webb, resting near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region, was built to study infrared light and to remain cold enough for that work by using its large sunshield to block heat and light. But tonight, in this relaxing story, you do not need to imagine engineering diagrams or technical schematics. You can imagine something gentler. Picture each telescope as a patient bowl held beneath the night, catching whatever ancient brightness finally arrives, keeping it safe, and passing it inward so that a hidden part of the cosmos may be softly known. There is something deeply restful in the fact that the universe is not revealed all at once in one flash of understanding. Instead, it becomes visible through accumulation, through patience, through a long and silent receiving. If your thoughts have felt busy today, you may let them learn from that pace now. Nothing needs to become clear all at once. Some things come into view only after enough quiet has gathered around them. NASA's observatory pages present Hubble and Webb as part of a broader effort to study the universe across different forms of light, with each observatory revealing different features of stars, galaxies, and cosmic clouds. So imagine yourself floating peacefully between them again. One observatory nearer to Earth, one farther away in deeper cold, both doing the same tender work in different ways. One gathers visible and ultraviolet light with steady precision. The other notices hidden infrared glow from dust-veiled regions, distant galaxies, and faraway planetary atmospheres. Together, they remind us that the cosmos is full of subtle messages, and that seeing is often a matter of learning how to receive the faintest ones. In this nighttime story, let that become a comfort. You are not required to search for anything. You only need to rest long enough for softness to gather. Imagine a far galaxy now, so distant that its light began traveling long before countless generations lived and slept beneath Earth's sky. And yet, tonight a fraction of that ancient glow arrives at a mirror shaped by human hands. The telescope does not interrupt the galaxy. It does not command the light. It only offers a place for the journey to end. That is one of the loveliest facts about space telescopes. They are built not for noise, but for reception. Hubble's image collections include galaxies, nebulae, and other luminous structures, revealed with remarkable sharpness from above Earth's atmosphere. Webb's image galleries similarly feature galaxies, nebulae, and star-forming regions seen in infrared, including scenes where dust and distance become gentler and more transparent to the observing eye. If you like, you may think of those observatories not as separate machines, but as two forms of memory floating in the dark. One remembers the visible grace of the universe, the colors and contours our eyes would love if they could travel high enough and far enough. The other remembers warmth, hidden structure, and the softer glow beneath surfaces and behind dust. Between them, there is no hurry, no competition, only a slow widening of wonder. And perhaps that is why they fit so naturally inside a sleep story. They practice one of the calmest arts imaginable. They remember light. They hold what arrives. They reveal what was always there, but too faint, too distant, or too hidden to notice before. Let your breathing become part of that rhythm now, easy and unforced, as though each inhale were a mirror opening to the dark, and each exhale were a detector quietly storing a little more calm. Let the remaining brightness of your thoughts grow dim and spacious. Let memory itself become gentle. Somewhere above the atmosphere, Hubble continues its faithful orbit. Somewhere far beyond that, Webb remains in cold shadow near Eltwo, gathering infrared whispers from the ancient universe. And here, inside this gentle bedtime, you may rest as they do, without effort, without urgency, letting the night bring what it will, trusting that calm, if welcomed softly enough, can gather around you just as starlight gathers in a patient mirror, until the whole mind feels less like a busy room and more like an observatory at peace, holding the dark without fear and finding within it not emptiness, but a slow and luminous rest. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift into a quieter and even more delicate kind of wonder, the kind that asks almost nothing of you except softness, because tonight the great observatories are not turning towards some dramatic storm of stars or some bright and obvious jewel of the sky, but toward a place that at first seems nearly empty, a small patch of darkness, a calm little portion of night where almost nothing appears to be happening at all. And yet, one of the most relaxing facts about space telescopes is that when they rest their gaze on such still and modest-looking regions for long enough, the darkness begins to fill with hidden structure, and what looked empty begins to reveal itself as abundance. Hubble has shown galaxies, nebulae, and star clusters with remarkable clarity from above Earth's atmosphere, while Webb's infrared observing adds views of galaxies, nebulae, and star-forming regions that can remain hidden behind dust in other wavelengths. There's something so peaceful in that, the idea that emptiness is sometimes only a first impression, that the universe can seem sparse until patience arrives, and that a quiet patch of night may hold more than the busy mind first expects. Imagine yourself floating there now, not near Earth exactly, and not too far from the calm lanes of the observatories, simply resting in a place where the stars are widely scattered, and the dark between them seems deep and velvety, as though space itself were breathing slowly in its sleep. Nearby, a telescope settles into position with barely noticeable motion, its instruments cooled, its mirror steady, its attention fixed not on what is loud or bright, but on what is faint enough to require tenderness. It waits. That is the whole art of it. It waits while ancient photons, each one carrying a tiny trace of some remote and graceful structure, arrive one by one after traveling for unimaginable stretches of time. It is almost like listening for snow. Nothing crashes, nothing insists. The receiving is so calm that it feels more like allowing than doing. If you wish, you can let your own thoughts follow that example now. You do not need to chase sleep. You do not need to solve the day. You only need to become a little more like the observatory, open, quiet, and unhurried, while what is gentle finds its way to you. NASA's observatory pages present Hubble and Webb as part of a wider effort to study the universe across different forms of light, so that multiple observatories can reveal different aspects of stars, galaxies, and cosmic clouds. And in this nighttime story, that means the darkness is never truly one thing. Invisible light, a field of space, may appear sprinkled with only a few clear lights, but in infrared, softness hidden behind dust can begin to appear, and regions that once seemed blank may unfold into quiet depth. That is such a lovely bedtime thought, that the universe rewards gentleness, that the faint becomes visible not when someone shouts at it, but when an instrument holds still long enough to notice. Picture the telescope now as a patient lantern turned outward rather than inward. Its mirror like a shallow silver gold pool collecting the oldest glimmers in existence. Somewhere far away, a galaxy releases light from billions of stars. Somewhere else, a cloud where new stars are forming glows behind curtains of dust. Somewhere beyond that, another ancient structure rests so quietly in the dark that only a cold, careful observatory could ever greet it. Webb's infrared mission and galleries emphasize that it can study distant galaxies, star-forming regions, and structures veiled by dust, while Hubble continues to provide clear views above the atmosphere in visible and ultraviolet light. And all of this happens in silence, which may be the most soothing part of all. The universe is busy, yes, but not noisy in the way the mind can be noisy. Out here, activity often unfolds with immense patience. Stars form over vast spans. Light crosses darkness for ages. Telescopes gather it little by little. Understanding blooms slowly. You can rest inside that slowness tonight. Let the small patch of darkness become a kind of cradle for your attention. Let it reassure you that not seeing everything at once is perfectly natural. Let it remind you that some of the richest things in life and in the cosmos first appear as quiet blankness. If a lingering worry drifts near, imagine placing it far off at the edge of the frame, where it becomes only one more faint point in a huge and kindly field. Then, allow the observatory to keep looking past it, beyond it, through it, into the deeper calm. Hubble continues its faithful watch above the blurring air of Earth. Webb remains in its colder station near the Sun-Earth Eltwo point, protected by its great Sunshield, so that faint infrared light can be studied with exquisite care. Together they teach a simple, drowsy lesson. Darkness is not the end of seeing. Sometimes it is the beginning, and as this sleep story grows softer around you, you may let your own inner sky become like that little field of space, spacious, dim, untroubled, ready to reveal not effort, but rest, not urgency, but distance, not noise, but the slow arrival of peace, until the mind itself feels like a deep observation, a calm held long enough to fill gently with stars. And now, as this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift into an even deeper stillness, the kind that feels wide and unhurried, as though your thoughts have become a dark and peaceful sky, with plenty of room between each faint star. Because tonight, the observatories offer another quiet lesson, one that belongs perfectly inside a relaxing story meant to help you fall asleep. The universe often reveals its gentlest details only to those who are willing to wait. Hubble, resting above Earth's atmosphere and Webb, observing from the calm region near the Sun-Earth Eltwo point. Both gather faint light from faraway objects and help reveal galaxies, nebulae, and star-forming regions that might otherwise remain blurred, hidden, or too dim to notice clearly. There's something deeply comforting in that, because it means the cosmos does not demand speed from the ones who wish to understand it. It responds beautifully to patience. Imagine yourself now beside one of these great observatories, not touching it, not interrupting its work, only drifting near enough to feel the calm purpose of it, the way it turns toward a chosen patch of darkness, and then simply remains there, composed and attentive, while old light continues its long journey inward. The telescope does not seem anxious about how long this takes. It does not tap its metallic fingers or strain toward the answer. It only holds still, as though stillness itself were a kind of welcome mat laid out for the universe. NASA's observatory materials describe Hubble and Webb as part of a larger effort to study the cosmos across different forms of light, with each observatory revealing different features that cannot always be seen in the same way by the human eye alone. So tonight, in this bedtime story, you can imagine that some parts of reality are like soft voices in another room, never absent, only faint, and that these telescopes are patient listeners, trained to hear what ordinary sight would miss. Hubble offers sharp views in visible and ultraviolet light from above the blur of Earth's atmosphere. Webb, protected by its broad sunshield and kept cold for infrared work, can study distant galaxies, star-forming regions behind dust, and the atmospheres of faraway exoplanets with a different kind of calm sensitivity. Together, they suggest something lovely and sleepy, that the universe is layered, that knowledge can arrive gently, and that hidden things do not need to be forced into view. They come forward when the conditions are quiet enough. Let that settle over you now like cool darkness. If there is any part of you still trying too hard to stay awake or too hard to fall asleep, you can let it soften. The telescopes do not force light to arrive. They simply remain ready when it does. In the same way, you do not need to force deep sleep tonight. You can become ready for it, open to it, calm enough to receive it when it comes. Imagine a faint galaxy far across the dark, its light spreading outward in all directions through the ages, crossing emptiness without complaint, without hurry, without ever knowing whether anyone will be there at the end to greet it. And yet, there is a mirror waiting. There is always a mirror waiting. A carefully shaped surface in the cold, a detector resting behind it, an observatory holding its posture like a quiet breath. Hubble's image collections and Webb's galleries both show that when observatories patiently gather light, the results can include luminous nebulae, remote galaxies, and richly detailed cosmic structures that reveal how much beauty is held inside apparent darkness. That is one of the most relaxing facts about space telescopes. They transform waiting into vision. They let time become part of the picture. They allow dimness to bloom into form. In this nighttime story, that process may feel less like science and more like the way dreams arrive, faint at first, then gently textured, then full enough to carry you away. Around you now, the observatory lane feels even quieter than before. Hubble continues its faithful orbit above the sleeping Earth, moving in smooth silence over oceans, mountain ranges, cloud bands, and darkened cities. Webb remains farther out near Eltwo, its great shield holding warmth and brightness to one side, so that the colder observing side can notice faint infrared light with exquisite care. Neither telescope is in a rush, neither one needs applause. Their calm is enough. Their stillness is enough. Their patient gathering is enough. And perhaps that can be true for you as well. You do not need to complete the day before rest begins. You do not need every thought to become neat and settled. You only need to drift a little farther into the soft, wide interval between one thought and the next, where the mind becomes spacious and dark in the kindest possible way. Let the observatories keep watch for you now. Let them receive the ancient light. Let them hold the faraway scenes. Let them do the quiet seeing while you let go, little by little, of brightness, effort, and time itself, until everything around you feels like one long, gentle observation, and the universe, having been waited for so patiently, finally becomes not sharper, but softer, calmer, and full of sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift even farther into the soft and steady hush of the observatory lanes, where nothing rushes, nothing startles, and the great space telescopes seem less like machines than like quiet windows opening one by one into deeper layers of night. Space observatories help humanity study the cosmos across different kinds of light, so the universe can be revealed gradually rather than all at once. That is such a peaceful thought to rest beside, because it means the night is not empty at all, only patient, and every telescope is simply opening another window into its calm. If you imagine yourself floating there now, wrapped in comfort, you might picture the first window as Hubble, gliding above Earth's atmosphere, where it can observe with unusual clarity invisible and ultraviolet light. Beneath it, the sleeping world turns slowly, blue and white and silver in the dark, while above it, the stars remain still enough to feel almost eternal, and the telescope passes between those two immensities with a devotion so quiet it seems made for a gentle bedtime. The next window opens farther away, where the James Webb Space Telescope keeps its place near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region and studies the universe in infrared light while sheltered by its large Sunshield. In this relaxing story, that distant station feels like a cool balcony at the edge of dream, where brightness is kept to one side and the softer hidden glow of the cosmos is allowed to rise. Webb's infrared view helps reveal distant galaxies, star-forming regions, and structures that can remain veiled by dust in other kinds of observing. You do not need to hold those facts tightly. You can let them drift past like lanterns on a slow river, one after another, until the only thing that remains is the feeling of gentle opening, window after window, layer after layer, a universe that becomes kinder and more spacious the less you try to grasp it. Somewhere behind one window, there are star nurseries wrapped in dust, soft and hidden like thoughts not yet fully formed. somewhere behind another, there are spiral galaxies turning so slowly that their motion belongs more to deep time than to any waking clock. Somewhere beyond those, there are distant structures whose light began traveling long before tonight, long before the room around you, long before so many ordinary days that now feel very far away. Hubble image collections include galaxies, nebulae, and star clusters seen with sharp detail from above the blurring effects of Earth's air, while web galleries feature galaxies and nebulae revealed through infrared sensitivity. And because this is a sleep story, you may imagine those views not as sharp scientific plates pinned under bright lights, but as soft, illuminated scenes at the edge of a dream, each one arriving only after enough stillness has gathered. The telescopes do not pull the universe open by force. They wait, they receive, they allow ancient light to arrive in its own time. That may be the most restful lesson they offer. If your mind still carries a few bright fragments of the day, let them rest outside the frame now, as if the telescope has gently turned away from them and towards something older, quieter, and infinitely less urgent. Let Hubble continue its calm passage above the world. Let Webb remain in shadowed cold beneath its great shield, keeping itself ready for faint infrared whispers from the deep cosmos. Let the larger family of observatories remain spread across their chosen regions, each one widening human sight by attending to a different part of the universe's long, luminous song. In your imagination, all of these windows remain open at once, yet none of them overwhelm you. One shows the bright grace of visible starlight. Another shows the hidden warmth inside dust and distance. Another reminds you that reality has always extended beyond the narrow range of human eyes, and that patient instruments can translate what we cannot directly see into something calm enough to rest with. And so the story softens further. The mirrors hold their stillness. The detectors welcome what arrives. The darkness between one galaxy and another feels velvety and kind rather than empty. Even the idea of distance begins to lose its sharpness, becoming instead a soothing stretch of time, a long inhalation of the universe itself. You do not need to travel to every window tonight. It is enough to know they are there. It is enough to know that above the atmosphere and beyond the nearer lanes of Earth, quiet watchers are keeping their stations, turning old light into images and hidden glow into understanding. And here, in this gentle bedtime, you can do something equally simple and equally beautiful. You can rest. You can let one window close softly after another inside your own mind, not in fear, not in loss, but in comfort, until the last small opening becomes a calm, dark field filled with faraway stars. And even that field begins to dim around the edges, and the observatories continue watching on your behalf while you drift slowly and safely toward deep sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift into an even softer region of thought, where the night feels wide and untroubled, and the great observatories seem to watch not only stars and galaxies, but also the quiet possibility of worlds too distant to ever be touched. Worlds known first by hints, by shadows, by delicate traces carried across the dark. Because One of the most relaxing facts about space telescopes is that they can help us learn about faraway planets without ever needing to go there at all. Webb's observing goals include studying the atmospheres of exoplanets, while its infrared sensitivity helps detect subtle signatures that ordinary sight alone could never gather. There is something beautifully restful in that idea, that understanding can come from gentleness rather than contact, from careful noticing rather than arrival. And so tonight, in this relaxing story, you may imagine yourself floating quietly beside the cold golden observatory as it keeps watch over a distant star, waiting for the smallest change in light, the faintest passing dimness, the most delicate alteration in a spectrum, as though the universe were speaking not in declarations, but in whispers. Far away, a planet crosses the face of its star, and for a brief, while a little of the starlight passes through that planet's atmosphere before continuing onward into the immense stillness. And when it reaches a patient instrument, some tiny clues remain, enough for careful minds to begin learning what gases may be present there, what warmth may linger there, what kind of sky might arch above a place no human foot will know. Webb's mission materials describe the observatory as capable of examining distant planetary atmospheres and studying faint infrared signals from very remote targets. Let that become soft in your imagination now. Not a technical procedure, but a quiet act of reading the air of another world from across the cosmic dark, almost as if a telescope were sensing the breath of a planet that never needed to speak aloud. Meanwhile, Hubble, still gliding above Earth's atmosphere, continues its own serene work in visible and ultraviolet light, helping reveal stars, galaxies, and luminous structures with unusual clarity from its orbit above the blurring air. It feels lovely that these observatories, one nearer and one farther, one silver and one gold, can work like calm companions in the long human effort to understand the sky, each offering a different window, each widening the map by attending to a different softness of light. You do not need to picture equations or instruments tonight. You can simply picture a dark ocean of space with small islands of starlight scattered across it. And around some of those stars, there may be planets turning quietly in their own nights, carrying clouds, winds, dawns, and perhaps rains no one will ever hear, yet still leaving enough of a trace that a distant observatory can notice them. The larger family of space observatories studies the universe across multiple wavelengths, allowing different telescopes to reveal different features of stars, galaxies, and planets. That means the cosmos is never seen all at once, but discovered gently, layer by layer, like a dream opening room after room as sleep grows deeper. And perhaps that is why this part of the story feels so calm, because it reminds you that knowledge does not always require closeness. Sometimes it asks only for patience, steadiness, and the willingness to cherish the faint. If the day has asked too much of you, if it has been full of sharp edges and bright demands, then rest now in this opposite way of knowing. Imagine a telescope holding still for hours, perhaps longer, while the tiny signal of a far planet slowly gathers meaning. Imagine ancient starlight crossing darkness without complaint. Imagine the observatory receiving that light with complete composure, translating almost nothing into just enough. This is one of the gentlest arts humans have ever practiced, learning from what barely touches us. Somewhere in the distance, a planet may be wrapped in hazes of gold or blue. Somewhere else, another may keep a sky of deep cloud, or a long twilight on one side, and a slow, star-filled darkness on the other. We do not need to force those worlds into certainty tonight. It is enough that they are there, hinted at by light, suggested by motion, offered to us only through the calm work of observatories that never rush. Webb's infrared observing helps scientists study distant galaxies and exoplanet atmospheres, while Hubble continues to provide sharp views from above Earth's atmospheric distortion. Let those facts drift quietly through you, then soften into feeling. Let the far planets remain far. Let the telescopes do the watching. Let your mind become as spacious as the dark between stars, where even the faintest hint can be enough. In this gentle bedtime, you do not need to arrive anywhere. You only need to float beside these patient instruments as they gather whispers from impossible distances and turn them into soft understanding until the whole universe begins to feel less like a vast unknown and more like a calm house at night, filled with closed doors, hidden rooms, and far-off sleepers. Each one real, each one quiet, each one resting beyond sight, and yet somehow, through the most delicate change in light, still beautifully present. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift a little farther into the calm, beyond the bright and familiar, into that quiet region where the observatories no longer seem to be merely looking outward, but listening with exquisite patience to the faintest changes in light. Because one of the most soothing facts about space telescopes is that they can help reveal the atmospheres of distant exoplanets by studying delicate signals carried in starlight. Imagine that now as softly as you like, not as a technical procedure, but as a kind of bedtime whisper traveling across impossible distance. Far away, beyond the warm nearness of our own sun, a small world passes in front of its star, and in that brief crossing, a tiny portion of starlight slips through the planet's atmosphere before continuing through the dark, altered just enough for a patient observatory to notice. Webb was designed to study infrared light and to investigate distant planetary atmospheres with that kind of careful sensitivity. There is something deeply restful in the idea that a whole world can announce itself so quietly, not with noise, not with fireworks, but with the gentlest dimming, the softest spectral trace, a slight change that only a still and waiting instrument can receive. So tonight, in this relaxing story, you may imagine yourself drifting beside the great golden telescope near the quiet station where it keeps watch, cold and composed, its broad shield holding warmth to one side, while its observing instruments remain ready for signals so faint they might almost be mistaken for silence. Webb operates near the Sun-Earth-Eltwo region and uses its large Sunshield to help maintain the low temperatures needed for infrared observing. But here, in this gentle bedtime, that fact becomes something softer. It becomes the image of a great calm mirror sleeping in shadow, protected from brightness, so it can notice the nearly invisible breadth of another sky. Somewhere around a distant star, there may be a planet wrapped in hazy gold clouds, or a world with high cold air and long dusks, or one with deep blue shadows under unfamiliar constellations. We do not have to define them too sharply tonight. It is enough to know that the universe contains such possibilities, and that our observatories are patient enough to greet them by light alone. The larger family of space observatories helps scientists study the cosmos across multiple wavelengths, allowing different telescopes to reveal different features of stars, galaxies, and planets. That means no single window tells the whole story. Hubble, still passing above Earth's atmosphere, continues to provide sharp views in visible and ultraviolet light from its orbit beyond the blur of moving air. Webb, farther out in colder stillness, extends that vision into infrared, where hidden warmth and delicate atmospheric clues can become more visible to careful study. Together, they offer such a peaceful lesson that understanding often arrives not in one great revelation, but in layers, one softness after another, one window opening quietly beside the next. If your own mind still carries a little brightness from the day, let it ease now into that layered calm. Let one thought fade like the last visible light on a horizon. Let another soften into infrared, into warmth without sharpness, into meaning without pressure. Let the observatories keep their watch while you drift. There's no need for you to measure anything, no need to name every world or remember every method. You can simply rest in the beauty of the idea that a planet very far away can be known by a faint signature in light, and that human beings learned to build instruments calm enough to notice it. NASA's Webb materials describe the observatory as capable of studying distant exoplanet atmospheres and other faint infrared targets, while Hubble remains one of the great observatories above Earth's atmosphere. And all of this unfolds with such patience that it seems almost made for sleep. A star shines, a planet passes, a whisper of its atmosphere touches the light. The light travels on, a mirror receives it, a detector listens, and somewhere, long after the journey began, understanding gathers like dew. Let that slowness hold you now. Let the far planets remain quiet and kind, not destinations, not problems to solve, but gentle presences suggested by dimming starlight. Let the telescopes remain what they have become in this nighttime story, not cold machines, but tender watchers holding their places in the dark. Hubble glides above the sleeping Earth. Webb rests in its colder station near Eltwo, shielded and attentive, receiving faint infrared traces from the deeper cosmos. Around them, the larger unseen choir of observatories keeps widening the human sense of the universe, not by shouting over mystery, but by listening more softly. And perhaps that is the most comforting thought of all as you settle toward deep sleep. The universe does not only reveal itself to force and brightness. Some of its loveliest truths arrive only to patience, only to stillness, only to the ones willing to rest in the dark long enough for a faraway atmosphere to breathe its quiet secret into the light. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift into one of the softest and most comforting ideas the space telescopes can offer, which is that even in the darkest regions of the cosmos, where thick veils of dust seem to hide everything from view, new stars are often quietly beginning their lives, and some observatories can see into those hidden places by studying forms of light that pass more gently through dust than visible light alone. Tonight, in this relaxing story, you may imagine the universe not as a cold, empty expanse, but as a vast sleeping house with many closed rooms. And behind one of those quiet doors, there's a nursery of stars, wrapped in dim clouds, sheltered from easy sight, glowing very faintly beneath layers of cosmic dust. Webb was designed to study infrared light, and that allows it to observe star-forming regions and other structures that can remain veiled in visible light views. There is something deeply soothing in that fact, because it means hidden does not mean absent, and darkness does not mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the calmest places are the ones where gentle beginnings are unfolding. So imagine yourself drifting beside the great golden observatory again, far from the blur and brightness of Earth, while its shield keeps warmth to one side, and its cold instruments rest in the patient shadow needed for infrared observing. Ahead of it, a cloud of dust floats in the darkness like a folded curtain, soft and immense. And behind that curtain, newborn stars are gathering themselves from gas and gravity in silence, their light not yet easy to see in ordinary ways, their presence only gradually revealed by a telescope willing to notice the hidden warmth within the cloud. NASA's Webb image galleries include nebulae and star-forming regions that show this quieter, dust-veiled side of the universe with unusual richness. In this nighttime story, you do not need to picture sharp scientific detail or bright labels or measurements. You can simply let the scene become dreamlike and calm. A dark cradle of dust with scattered embers deep inside it, each ember a future sun, each one resting for now in a place of sheltered beginnings. There is a beautiful bedtime lesson in that. Not everything important happens in the open. Not everything meaningful is bright from the start. Some things need shadow, slowness, and time before they can shine. If your own thoughts still feel dim or unfinished tonight, let them be that way. Let them remain in their soft cloud a little longer. The observatories are patient with what is not fully visible, and you can be patient too. Hubble, still gliding above Earth's atmosphere, continues to offer clear views in visible and ultraviolet light, showing galaxies, nebulae, and clusters with remarkable sharpness from its steady orbit above the moving air. Webb, from its colder and farther station near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region, extends that gentle seeing into infrared, helping reveal what dust may soften or conceal in other views. Together, they feel like two kinds of quiet understanding. One showing the luminous surfaces of cosmic beauty, the other greeting the warmth hidden deeper inside. And perhaps that is why space telescopes belong so naturally in a bedtime story, because they remind us that reality has layers, and that some of the most tender truths are the ones discovered only after the eyes have relaxed and the mind has become still. Imagine now that the cloud before you is so calm, it barely seems to move at all. Yet within it, gravity is gently drawing matter inward, gathering dust and gas into knots. And those knots will one day become stars whose light may travel across ages. NASA's observatory materials present star-forming regions as key targets for major observatories, with Webb especially suited to reveal dust-hidden structure through infrared observing. But tonight that fact can remain soft and sleepy. It can simply mean that the universe knows how to begin quietly. It knows how to form brilliance inside shelter. It knows how to wait without hurry. Let your breathing follow that pattern now, slow and kind, as though each inhale enters a dark cloud, and each exhale leaves behind a small, calm glow. If a worry drifts through, let it dissolve into the dust. If a memory flickers, let it become one more distant ember in the nursery, warm but not demanding. Above the sleeping Earth, Hubble continues its faithful passage, watching with clarity from beyond the atmosphere. Farther out, Webb remains in its protected cold, receiving the faint infrared traces of hidden cosmic beginnings. Around them, the wider family of observatories helps widen the human picture of the universe across multiple forms of light, and all of them together offer the same gentle reassurance as this calming narration, that hidden things can still be real, that quiet places can still be full of becoming, and that somewhere within the great dark, new stars are sleeping in dust even now, not lost, not lonely, only waiting for the right kind of seeing, while you, here in your own small and peaceful corner of night, wait for nothing at all now except the soft arrival of deeper sleep. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift farther into the soft stillness of the observatory lanes, where the great telescopes no longer feel like instruments at all, but like patient companions resting in the dark on your behalf. And tonight they turn not toward anything loud or bright, but toward a deep field of space so calm and seemingly empty that at first appears almost like a pause in the universe, a small dark hush between brighter things. And yet Hubble and Webb have both shown that such quiet regions can hold astonishing depth when observed with enough patience. There is something wonderfully soothing in that, because it means stillness is not barren, and emptiness is not always empty, and the dark can contain far more tenderness than the waking mind expects. Imagine yourself floating there now, wrapped in comfort, while the telescope settles into its long, unhurried gaze, its mirror angled with exquisite calm, its detectors waiting without strain, and all around you, the cosmos seems to breathe in a slow and silent rhythm that has been continuing for billions of years. Hubble, high above Earth's atmosphere, has spent decades revealing galaxies, nebulae, and star clusters with unusual clarity from its orbit, while Webb, farther away near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region, studies the universe in infrared light and reveals distant galaxies and dust-veiled structures with a different softness of sight. Tonight, though, you do not need to hold those facts tightly. You can let them become part of the atmosphere of the story, part of the hush, part of the way the night feels larger and gentler when you remember that human beings placed quiet mirrors above the blur of air and farther out into colder darkness, simply to watch ancient light arrive. And so the observatory waits. It does not demand a spectacle. It does not ask the universe to hurry. It only keeps looking into that little patch of shadow. And after a while, the shadow begins to change. At first, there are only a few faint points, almost too small to name. And then more begin to gather. And then dim shapes bloom like breath on cold glass. And then the field becomes rich with faraway homes, each one a galaxy, each one full of its own slow stars and possible worlds, all of them resting in the dark so quietly that they seem less discovered than gently remembered. NASA's image galleries for Hubble and Webb both highlight galaxies as major observing targets, revealing the deep richness of what can be found in the darker, quieter reaches of space. It is lovely to think that a tiny window of night can contain such abundance. It is lovely to think that patience can turn blankness into beauty. And perhaps that is part of why this sleep story grows softer as it goes on, because the telescopes keep offering the same calm lesson in different forms. There is no need to force the hidden things. If you remain still enough, if you let the brightness settle, if you allow time to help, what seemed empty may begin to fill with gentle meaning, all on its own. In this nighttime story, you may let your own mind become such a field now, a dark and open place with plenty of room between thoughts, where nothing has to happen quickly, and where even the dimmest idea can drift without pressure. If a stray thought appears, let it be one faint galaxy among many. If a memory glows briefly, let it rest at the edge of the frame. Nothing needs to come closer. Nothing needs to sharpen. The observatories are not trying to possess the universe. They are only receiving it. Webb's infrared observing allows it to study distant galaxies and structures that may be hidden or softened by dust in other views, while Hubble continues to provide a sharp, visible, and ultraviolet window from above Earth's atmosphere. Together, they make the deep field feel like more than a scientific image. They make it feel like a lullaby made of distance, a quiet proof that the oldest light can still arrive gently, that the farthest places can still leave a trace, and that time itself does not have to be frightening when it is held this softly. Imagine the golden mirror of Webb resting in its cold, protected shadow, the silver form of Hubble circling above the sleeping Earth, and between them, this deep, patient dark, full of galaxies so remote that their light began traveling long before tonight, long before your room, long before so many ordinary worries that now seem small enough to set down. NASA presents these observatories as part of a broader effort to study the universe across different wavelengths, which is why the same field of darkness can reveal different layers of structure, depending on how it is observed. And that too is a comforting thought, that the universe is not one flat silence, but a layered softness, a place where even darkness has textures, histories, and hidden rooms. Let those rooms remain closed if they wish. Let the telescopes do the watching. Let the galaxies stay far away and calm. Let the deep field become a cradle for your attention, something spacious enough to hold the last wakeful edges of the day until they dim and widen and lose their sharpness. You do not need to count the galaxies. You do not need to follow the light back to its source. You only need to drift here a little longer, in the long gaze of the observatory, where time grows quiet, distance becomes gentle, and the whole sleeping universe seems to whisper the same slow truth again and again. There is more than enough room to rest. As this gentle bedtime story continues, let yourself drift even deeper into the still and spacious dark, where the great observatories no longer seem separate from one another, but begin to feel like a quiet choir spread across the cosmos, each one keeping its own calm note, each one watching a different softness of light, each one helping the universe become a little more knowable without ever disturbing its peace. Space observatories study the cosmos across different kinds of light, and Hubble and Webb are part of that wider effort to reveal different features of galaxies, nebulae, and distant structures. That is such a comforting thing to rest beside tonight, because it means the night is not being watched from only one angle or through only one narrow window, but through many forms of patience, many forms of stillness, many forms of care. Imagine yourself floating now in a region where the darkness is velvety and deep, but never lonely, because far apart in that calm expanse are observatories holding their places with perfect gentleness. Some nearer, some farther, some watching the bright and familiar glow that human eyes would understand, others receiving softer hidden signals that arrive only to those instruments patient enough to wait in shadow. Hubble remains above Earth's atmosphere, offering clear views in visible and ultraviolet light, while Webb observes in infrared from the calm region near the Sun-Earth Eltwo point. But here in this relaxing story, those facts can become more like a lullaby than a lesson. Hubble is the silver watcher who circles close to home, gliding above the sleeping Earth with its faithful rhythm, while Webb is the golden watcher who rests farther out in protected cold, listening for the hidden warmth of the old universe beneath its broad and quiet shield. Together, they seem less like machines than like two slow breaths of the same dream, one a little nearer, one a little deeper, both turned toward the same endless night. And all around them is the feeling of gentle cooperation, because no single observatory has to hold the whole sky alone. One reveals crisp, luminous edges. Another greets what dust has softened or veiled. Another, somewhere farther in the unseen family of observatories, widens the picture in its own patient way. If you like, you can imagine them as lanterns placed around a great sleeping garden, their light not shining outward, but inward toward understanding, each one illuminating a different petal, a different path, a different quiet pool. And the garden itself is the universe, vast and old and deeply untroubled, full of galaxies that turn so slowly they seem at rest, full of clouds where stars are beginning in secret, full of distant worlds that can only be sensed through the faintest alteration of light. Webb's mission materials highlight galaxies, star-forming regions, and exoplanet atmospheres among its observing goals, while Hubble's image collections continue to show galaxies, nebulae, and clusters with striking clarity. Yet none of that needs to feel busy tonight. It can all become soft. It can all become part of the atmosphere through which you are drifting, like dim music heard from another room. Let the observatories keep singing their silent notes now. Let Hubble's note be clear and cool, like starlight reflected on still water. Let Webb's note be warm and hidden, like the last trace of evening held in a stone after sunset. Let the wider choir remain spread through darkness, each watcher steady, each instrument calm, each mirror and detector devoted to the tender work of receiving what has traveled far. There is something so deeply reassuring in the thought that the universe can be studied this way, not by breaking it open, not by rushing toward it, but by waiting in the dark with enough grace to notice what arrives. Perhaps that is why the story has become slower and sleepier as it has gone on. The telescopes have been teaching the same quiet lesson all along. To see gently, one must become gentle. To receive faint light, one must allow for stillness. To understand distance, one must stop trying to close it all at once. And maybe sleep is like that too. Maybe deep sleep is not something to chase, but something to make room for. You do not need to gather the whole universe in your hands tonight. You only need to let go of enough brightness for rest to find you. Imagine now that the observatories will continue their watch long after this moment, long after your thoughts have softened, long after your awareness has drifted into dream. Hubble will keep passing over the curve of Earth. Webb will remain in its colder station near Eltwo, protected by its sunshield, receiving infrared light from ancient and distant places. The larger family of observatories will continue widening the human sense of the cosmos across many forms of light. And you do not need to help them. You do not need to stay awake for the seeing. The choir will go on singing without sound. The mirrors will go on remembering the stars. The detectors will go on listening to the oldest whispers in the dark, and you can go on drifting, lighter now, quieter now, farther from the edges of thought, until the whole sky feels like a soft blanket laid over your mind, and every telescope becomes a calm guardian of the night, watching tenderly while you slip at last into a deeper and deeper sleep. And now, as this gentle bedtime story reaches its last quiet chapter, let everything become a little dimmer, a little slower, a little softer around the edges, as though the whole universe were lowering its voice for you, as though the stars themselves understood that it is time not for learning anymore, not for traveling any farther, but for resting at last in the calm that has been gathering all along. You have drifted beside patient observatories, floated through dark lanes of ancient light, past the silver hush of one telescope and the golden stillness of another. And now, there is nothing left to do with any of it except let it become part of your sleep, part of the deep and gentle dark behind your eyes, part of the slow bedtime feeling that asks nothing of you at all. Above Earth's atmosphere, Hubble continues its calm orbit, and farther away, Webb remains in the cold quiet near the Sun-Earth Eltwo region, continuing their patient watch in different kinds of light. While you rest, you do not need to follow them anymore. You do not need to hold the facts, or remember the names, or keep the images bright in your mind. You can let them go one by one, the way a few final lanterns drift down a dark river and disappear around a bend. Let Hubble become only a silver gleam fading into distance. Let Webb become become only a warm gold hush beneath its shield. Let galaxies become soft clusters of faraway glow, too distant to trouble you, too beautiful to need explaining. Let the hidden nurseries of stars close their curtains again. Let the faint atmospheres of remote worlds dissolve back into whisper and shadow. Let the whole cosmos become less like a map and more like a blanket, wide and dark, and gentle enough to settle over every thought that is still awake. If one thought remains bright, let it dim. If one worry still circles, let it widen into a quiet orbit so large it no longer touches you. If one memory rises, let it pass slowly like a pale satellite crossing a sleeping sky. Nothing needs to land. Nothing needs to be answered. This relaxing story can simply keep softening until it is no longer really a story at all, only a calm space in which sleep may arrive. Imagine now that you are no longer moving through the observatory lanes, but resting within them, as though space itself had made a quiet room for you between the stars. The walls of that room are darkness, but a kind darkness, velvety and warm, and somewhere far beyond them, the telescopes keep their long watch without sound. The mirrors go on gathering ancient light. The detectors go on listening. The universe goes on offering its distant glow in patient silence. And here, held inside this gentle bedtime, you are allowed to do the simplest thing of all. You are allowed to stop following. You are allowed to stop reaching. You are allowed to drift. Let your breathing become the only rhythm that matters now. Easy in, easy out, like a small tide moving through a sheltered bay at night. Let your body feel heavier in the best possible way, as if gravity has become kind and generous and has decided to hold you more carefully than before. Let your hands rest. Let your jaw loosen. Let the space around your eyes grow soft and still. The day does not need you now. The screens and schedules and bright unfinished things can remain far away on the other side of some vast and harmless distance. They are small now. They are dim now. They do not belong inside this room of sleep. Here, there is only the last soft drift, the feeling of being carried without motion, the sense that the mind is becoming wider even as it quiets, like a night sky emptying itself of every unnecessary light until only peace remains. Space observatories together widen humanity's view of the cosmos across different wavelengths. But tonight their work can simply become a background hush, a reminder that quiet watching continues even when you let go. So let go now, gently, completely, without effort. Let the chapter titles fade. Let the mirrors fade. Let the stars fade. Let even the idea of distance fade. You do not need to travel through the universe anymore, because the universe has already become soft enough to rest inside. Somewhere very far off, ancient light is still arriving. Somewhere deep in shadow, a telescope is still turned toward the dark. Somewhere above the sleeping earth, the calm watch continues. But for you, there is only this last easing downward, this final settling, this slow and tender falling away from words and images and thoughts, until the story becomes a murmur, then a hush, then almost nothing, and you drift beyond astronomy, beyond imagination, beyond even the quietest wondering, into that deeper place where the mind unfastens the body yields, and sleep, at last, receives you like the gentlest night in all the cosmos.